I brought in two friends that can speak on a couple of different people of real courage, and one of them is Eric Metaxas. He is the author of Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy, and Dinesh D'Souza, president of King's College and author of The Roots of Obama's Outrage, or Obama's Rage. Both are books that you should read and have and pass on to others. Let me start with you. Dietrich Bonhoeffer has become a hero of mine, mainly because of your book.
Would you recommend the book?
Yeah. Yes. He's become a hero of mine because he was amazingly courageous. Was he that kind of guy, or did he? Are people like that born that way, or are they made?
A little bit of both. Bonhoeffer was raised in, and of course I assume all of your viewers have already read the book, so I'm
sure.
just going to,
yeah.
But basically he was born into an amazing family. I mean, in the book I go into the family because you can hardly believe what an amazing family is. They were trained, these kids, to think clearly, to figure out what you believe, and then to act on it. And if you don't act on it, you're a hypocrite. You don't really believe it. It's an amazing thing that they were trained this way. So he was raised in a family this way. But of course, when the Nazis came to power, things changed, because suddenly now you had to live this. And he really, I think it came principally from his faith. He was a devout Christian. The word courage, ironically, is French, and it means heart, right? To have heart, to be a person of integrity, to know who you are, what you believe, and then to act out of that, not to have any daylight between what you say you believe and how you behave.
And I find it interesting that it is people that he was raised in that family, and that's why I said in the opening monologue that when you're at school, and this happened between my wife and I, we'll be driving home and she'll have not said something, or I have not said something, and said, oh, it would have made things worse. Our children are listening and they hear that. That's not training them to be people of courage. Now, Bonhoeffer wanted to meet Gandhi. He thought Gandhi had the answer. But Dinesh, you don't think that in that particular case, Gandhi would have worked?
Well, Gandhi had a different situation. The British were very different than Hitler. They were tyrannical in that they were ruling India. But Gandhi's strategy, which was nonviolence, mass protest, lying down in front of the train tracks, very dramatic. But if Hitler had been in power, the trains would have kept going.
Right.
One of my professors at Dartmouth used to say, if Hitler was in power in India, Gandhi would be a lampshade. It's kind of a harsh way of putting it, but he would have dealt with Gandhi. Right. So Gandhi knew that, and he developed a strategy aimed at producing, you might say, the repentance of the tyrant. In other words, Gandhi was out to convince the British that they were wrong, and he knew that he could do that by appealing to Western principles. So Gandhi's ideas of nonviolence did not so much come out of Hinduism. They came out of Christianity and out of British.
Okay, and so that's why Bill Ayers failed here in the 1960s when they were blowing things up, because America is not Nazi Germany.
Exactly.
Right?
The Martin Luther King strategy, which was derived from Gandhi, which appealed to American goodness. When King said, I'm submitting a promissory note, he was referring to the Declaration of Independence. America,
please, did you just hear that? Did you just hear that? It is the Martin Luther King model, and that's why they're destined to lose. They're destined to lose because they're still using thuggish force, and that doesn't work. They're mocking, they're imitating Martin Luther King's movement here in America. They're thuggish behind, so they're destined to lose. Now, this is also why Bonhoeffer, in the end, flipped, because he came into it as a pacifist.
Right.
In the end, he was the guy that was plotting Hitler's death.
And it wasn't just a calculation on his part. I think it needs to be said in the case of Bonhoeffer, and I think in all our cases, Bonhoeffer would say you have to have a relationship with God, a personal relationship, because at some point principles and ideas are empty. In other words, you say, well, what do we apply here? What do we apply here? He made a calculation as the Nazis became more powerful. He said, God is leading me into getting involved in this conspiracy against Hitler. If he didn't feel God was leading him to do that, he wouldn't have done it. And because he believed God was leading him to do this, he had the courage. He didn't care what people thought. There were people around him, people he respected, who looked down their noses at him. They thought, what are you doing? You're Mr. Pacifist, Mr. Anti-Nazi, now you're working for the Abwehr. It didn't make any sense. He was playing to an audience of one, and that was God. That's important to say.
There are two very distinct paths. Gandhi's is the right path, and for this nation, Bonhoeffer understood that at the beginning, but was in the wrong setting. Please read these men, and read about these men as much as you can. First, the books, again, that you must read is The Roots of Obama's Rage and Bonhoeffer, by Eric Metaxas. Be careful on the Bonhoeffer books. Make sure you get that one, because the left has tried to co-opt and distort him, and Eric has said it right. Back in just a second.